Bonjour, welcome to Sliver and Bite TV. Today we are making choux à la crème, or you could also call it cream puffs or profiteroles. No matter what you call it, we're gonna cook it. It is a delicate pastry filled with a Chantilly cream or a stabilized cream dipped in a chocolate ganache. What is not to love about that? For more condensed versions of this video, head to sliverandbite.com.au for just a sliver or bite size. So let's get into it. First up, we are going to create our choux pastry, which is quite a simple pastry, but it does take a few times to master it. I'm adding my water, butter, and salt into a saucepan and bringing it to a gentle simmer. And you can use your wooden spoon at this stage just to make sure that you're moving the warmth of the water around to melt that butter. And ideally, you would have had your eggs coming to room temperature for at least the last half an hour to 45 minutes. And if you are in a rush, you can actually crack the eggs into a ramekin and submerge in some lukewarm water just to give it a little bit of a hurry up. Now that we've got that simmering, you can turn off your heat and start slowly adding in your plain flour. Now I have added the flour all in one go, and I have also done it in 1 to 2 tablespoons at a time. It is completely up to you. Both work out just fine. If you are going to be adding it slowly, you want to make sure that you fluctuate your heat. You do want to make sure that the mixture stays warm at this stage. As you continue to add in a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons at a time, you notice that it thickens up, or you will notice an instant thicken once you put in either half or the full amount of flour. You will want to ensure that you have completely mixed in the dried flour before moving on. Just adding in my last little bit of flour before letting it sit for 10 minutes just to slightly cool, because we don't want to add in our eggs and actually cook the egg. As you can see, I slightly break it up just so that it can actually cool into the innermost part of the current state of the pastry. And a little tip, you can remove it off of the hot plate or your gas cooktop and put it on a trivet just to give it that little bit more of a chance to cool down. Now that the 10 minutes is up, I am going to just give it a slight little stir and mix up the contents before cracking the eggs one by one into the mixture. Now, if you are a confident egg cracker, you can crack directly into the pastry. However, if you are worried about getting any of the shell in there, you can put it into a ramekin and then pour it from the ramekin into your pot. Now we are going to combine that. As you can see, I'm removing the trivet and putting down a damp tea towel. This way, your saucepan won't move all over the bench. Safety first. Also, you are going to want to mix slowly to begin with. Then you can increase your speed to combine the egg into the pastry. As you can see, it doesn't take too long for the pastry to come together and become sticky. Once that happens, you can go in with your next egg. And as you can see, I'm going to crack directly into the pot. I had a little bit fly out of the pot, so just throwing that back in, and now going in with the third egg. Let's up the tempo a little bit. Your arm will be getting sore right about now. So, take the time to get a spatula, one that is quite sharp at its edge, so that you can scrape down your wooden spoon and the edge of your saucepan, just to make sure you're incorporating absolutely all the ingredients. And adding in our final egg. This is the home stretch for mixing. I have seen some chefs, cooks, and influencers use an electric mixer for this. If you do, you will want to make sure it's an upright and use the paddle attachment, because otherwise it's just going to get stuck in the whisk. I believe that you really should be just using your wooden spoon. It's a more authentic approach to it. However, certainly up to you and your capabilities as to whether or not you do want to spend 10 to 15 minutes mixing non-stop. We are looking good. It's at a good consistency. You can see it shakes off the wooden spoon relatively easy. You'll want to make sure that it's not sticking to your wooden spoon like a traditional dough per se. And if it is sticking like a traditional dough and it is not loose, as you can see on the screen, you may be able to add another egg. However, it might be that you need to start again. If you're happy with the pastry, you can decant that into a piping bag, and you'll make sure that you have a tip if you have pastry tips. If not, you can just cut the opening of your pastry bag. And I remember growing up, and a family member used to spoon it onto the baking paper. So there's several ways that you can attack this. And now we are piping that onto some baking paper. And because the pastry coming out of the piping bag is quite sticky, as you can see there, you will need to secure the baking paper to the baking tray, just so it doesn't lift off when you are trying to separate from the little blobby from your piping tip. And I am piping the blobbies to approximately 1 inch or 3 centimeters in diameter. If you choose to go larger, you will need to adjust your cook time because the aim here is to dry these little puff balls out. And once you're done, you are going to want to put a little bit of water on your finger and just dab down the lift-off peak. This will also ensure that you have a nice, neat ball and not an odd-shaped profiterole. We are now placing them on the middle rack in the oven for 15 minutes. And then once done, removing. But don't turn the oven off, we're putting it right back in. What we are going to do is pierce a hole in the side of it or the bottom of the profiterole. And this will be how you fill it. But also, this will allow us to continue to dry out the profiteroles. Once you have finished piercing your profiteroles, they can return back to a slightly cooler oven for a further 10 minutes. That will give us some time to organize the filling. You can use a custard, however, I like it a little lighter, and I am making a Chantilly Cream, which is a stabilized cream. So you will notice that if you put a standard whipped cream into the fridge, it will deflate in a matter of hours. This way, it will last longer and won't deflate inside your profiterole once piped in. So I am going in with some cream, some mascarpone, vanilla bean paste, or a thick vanilla bean essence. You don't want it too watery, that's all. And some powdered sugar. And then we are going to start on slow just to make sure we incorporate the powdered sugar. Otherwise, it'll just fly everywhere. Then you can mix on high until you get a nice thick consistency. It will be a little denser than your standard whipped cream, so you will have to bear that in mind. And also, be sure not to over whip, because it will turn into butter and it'll split. I'm going to pause here just to scrape down the sides of the bowl, just to make sure I've got all of that powdered sugar incorporated. And then mixing on high again for a minute or so. You will notice I have not edited any of the footage out here. So this is actually how long it takes to create Chantilly Cream. Super easy and faster than your standard whipped cream. And it's time to fill our profiteroles. You'll want to do this possibly before you even start on your chocolate ganache, because you will want to fill your profiteroles and then place in the fridge. This will allow the ganache to stick to the cold profiterole once it's dunked. So I am decanting some of the Chantilly Cream into a smaller piping bag, and I have a very narrow tip edge here because we don't want to fill our profiteroles in one little squeeze. So you'll see that I put a little bit of the Chantilly Cream on the side of the bowl, and you'll see just how slowly that comes out. Remember, we're dealing with a delicate French pastry here. So just shoving the end of the tip in and filling. What you'll see is I tend to twist the profiterole because there may be holes and you don't want to just have a whole heap of Chantilly cream spill out onto the bench. And you'll see this particular profiterole expand when I'm filling it. Also, you want to make sure that you don't overfill your profiterole because it's only going to push the extra amount of Chantilly cream out and you won't be able to use it. Now let's get started on the chocolate ganache while the filled profiteroles are chilling in the fridge. In a saucepan, pour in your cream. You can heat your cream up in the microwave as well. I prefer to do it in a saucepan. And you'll bring that to a simmer and then turn directly off. You do not want to have this come to a rolling boil. Then we will chop up your desired chocolate. I go in with a dark, even though I have friends and family that don't really like dark chocolate. However, when you cut it in with the cream, it actually smooths it out a bit and it's not so bitter. I won't bore you showing you how I chop all of my chocolate, so just skipping ahead here. Once you're finished roughly chopping your desired chocolate percentage up, you will then put into a heat-proof bowl, and then you will make sure that the chocolate is level, and then you will pour over your heated cream and let that stand for 10 minutes before you even think about touching it. And there's two reasons, because you will not have heated the chocolate up enough and you will have lumps. And the reason why you don't overheat your cream is because you will end up splitting the chocolate. So it's all quite delicate. However, you don't need to use a thermometer to check the temperature. You can just go by your gut. Just giving the cream a quick stir, just to make sure there's no solids floating on the top. And then pouring that over the chocolate. And if you do have some of the chocolate peeking up over the cream line, just shake your bowl a little bit and it'll settle the chocolate into place. That's been sitting for 10 minutes now. We can slowly start incorporating the chocolate with the cream. It'll take roughly 2 to 3 minutes to fully combine, but it'll be the perfect texture to dip our profiteroles. As you can see, I've retrieved them from the fridge and they're just sitting on a plate ready to be dipped. Would you look at that? That is good enough just to stick a straw in. Let's get dunking. Be cautious when you are dunking your profiteroles in. There might be some thin parts of the pastry, so you don't want to lose half of your profiterole in the chocolate ganache. You can choose to wear gloves or use tongs. However, if you've got clean hands, just use your hands. It's much easier. And as you can see, it's only a little bit of chocolate that gets on your fingers there, just at the tips. After all, you are only dunking just beyond half way down the profiterole. Here is a side-on angle for you, rolling it around and then tipping to the side just to have a nice clean lift off. There you have it, profiteroles, as they make them in France. Thank you for joining me, and remember, there is so much more Sliver and Bite has to offer at sliverandbite.com.au. See you soon.